Mrs. Bours.
Thank you, thank you. As usual, we have another lengthy report calling for the EU to do absolutely everything under the sun. These numerous EU initiatives and campaigns haven't done one thing to help gender equality. But of course it is great PR, isn't it? MEPs calling for gender equality, to stop violence against women and demand tougher legislation on discrimination. No one would or could argue with that. But the reality is that none of us here have the power to initiate anything. So what about the report in front of us? You call for positive discrimination in respect of listed companies. This is demeaning to women. We are perfectly capable of competing for positions of responsibility in business. We don't need the EU making us look inferior or weaker. And then you state you want gender clauses for public procurement contracts. Classic EU bureaucracy. If I want a job doing, I want it doing well. I want the best company with the best plan for the best price, irrespective of how many men and women work in that company. Once again, the FEM Committee and the EU justifying its own existence with reports that are nothing more than pie in the sky, offering no practical help to women whatsoever.
And now Mr. Marinho and Pinto for 1 minute.
Obrigado, Sr. Presidente.
Thank you very much indeed, President. Madam Commissioner, dear colleagues, we'll only achieve our objectives of 75% of women in the labour market in 30 years' time, and 70 years will have to pass before equal pay is a reality. 20 years will have to pass before we have parity in national parliaments and on boards of the largest European companies, and then 40 years will have to wait to have an equal distribution of household work. Now here in the Parliament we're taking decisions, moving in the right direction, but only 1/3 of members are women. So we've got to make effective decisions to bring an end to this reality. We've got to create quotas to make sure that companies are obliged to recruit a certain number of women. And we've got to fight against stereotypes which prevail in a lot of institutions, such as the Catholic Church, for example, where women are still not able to become priests. And that's the reason I'm actually calling for Pope Francis to take a public stance on this situation. The Catholic faith cannot be a masochistic and chauvinistic faith. Thank you.
Do you accept a blue card from Mr. Arnott?
You speak in favour of quotas. I am personally in favour of recruiting the best person for the job, whether they're male, whether they're female, whatever their ethnic origin. Those things do not matter to me. My concern here is this. If you end up with a quota system, what happens then with the person who does not know whether they've got their job because of their gender or whether they've got their job because of a quota? Is that not the most demeaning thing of all to women?
Caro colega, Sr. Deputado, respondo-lhe.
Dear colleague, well, I'll answer with a question. Do you really think women are inferior to men? Do you think that that is something that explains where they end up in the hierarchy? Do you think men are better because they've got higher posts than women? Or do you think rather this can be explained by a long-standing culture which simply doesn't recognize a woman as a fully fledged human being? We've got to change this situation. We've got to fight against this. Obviously we've got to recruit the best candidates, but that's not the rule that applies today. Men are recruited first and foremost because and women don't have access to these to these posts because they're women, quite simply.
Deputy Bill Etheridge.
Thank you. Back in Britain, people often say, how could things have changed so much? How have things become different? We never voted for any of this. But now I can see, and I'll be able to explain it better. Because hidden behind a very serious issue, such as women's rights, which is absolutely important, we have another statist or superstate power grab, telling companies how many people they can employ, of what kind, saying what you can do in the household, who does the chores. Maybe we'll have a European arrest warrant if you don't put the toilet seat down properly. This is the kind of thing that drives people mad. Behind a very serious issue, you paint on a bleeding heart, but behind it, you're grabbing more and more power. And Dr. Martin Luther King wanted to see, in his dream, people treated on the merits of their character, not on quotas. He was a true fighter for freedom, not the weasels of the British Labour Party who've been here today and sold a tissue of lies that they continue to sell constantly. They are a disgrace and they will be defeated. Thank you.